Hello everybody, welcome back or welcome to my channel. I hope you all enjoyed this video. We are doing a Deku X Listener Christmas by actually a Hawk Simp on Wattpad. I hope you all enjoy this video, so yeah, let's get into it. You and Izuku, oh wait, also, Merry Christmas. You and Izuku walked together towards Aizawa's office. Izuku had a special day planned for your newfound friend, but he needed the permission from Aizawa first, so the two of you decided to chat with him after classes were over. Once the two of you reached his office, Izuku knocked on the door and waited for a response. A muffled "come in" came from the other side, giving Izuku the okay to enter the room. You followed closely behind him. You saw Aizawa grading papers quietly. "What do you need?" Aizawa grumbled out. You glanced at Izuku for a second. He smiled slightly at you and nodded his head. "Well, sir, we wanted to talk to you about Eri." You and Izuku walked with Eri placed between the two of you. She held onto one of your hands tightly as she talked with Izuku about what your plans were. You still hadn't told her you wanted it to be a surprise. For the past few weeks, she had been learning about Santa and all about the Christmas traditions. Word got around the class that she desperately wanted to meet Santa, so you thought you'd set a little plan for her to come to the mall to meet him. It took some convincing from Aizawa, but he ultimately decided that it would be a good experience for Eri. She needed a normal childhood memory, and this would be a good place to start. As the three of you entered the mall, Eri looked around in wonder. There were lights hung up on the railings of the upper levels, and a giant Christmas tree was placed in the main lobby. It was brightly decorated with different lights and decorations. "Wow, look!" She pointed to the tree happily. You smiled down at her. "Isn't it cool?" you responded. You looked up at Izuku to see him smiling at you. You blushed and looked away. "So the plan today, Eri, is that you get to pick out some toys. A gift from our class to you," Izuku explained. He crouched down to talk with her face to face. "How does that sound?" he asked. She smiled and nodded her head excitedly. "Can we also get a candy apple?" she asked him. He nodded his head in agreement, and the smile never leaving his face. "Of course." He stood back up and looked at you again with a smile. "Let's go." The afternoon was filled with going from shop to shop. Eri chose a couple of toys, some candy, and a new beanie with a white fluffy ball at the top. She also insisted on buying a coffee cup for Aizawa that had a Christmas tree on it. You and Izuku looked at each other while Eri looked at the cotton candy machine. "Hey, Wyan," Izuku asked, kind of loudly. You bit your lip to try to keep from smiling. "Did you hear Santa is going to be in town?" he asked you. You faked a gasp. "No way, really?" you responded. Eri quickly turned and looked at the two of you. "Santa? Really?" she squealed. There was a sparkle in her eyes as she looked up at him. Izuku nodded his head. "I hear he's going to be at this very mall," he responded. Eri squealed again, causing you to laugh slightly. Her excitement caught the attention of a few bystanders, but you didn't care. Eri's happiness was all you cared about right now. I wonder if we could meet him," you told Izuku. He hummed and tapped his chin with his finger. "I don't know. What do you think, Eri?" She beamed happily at Izuku. Her head bobbed up and down excitedly. "I want to meet him," she beamed. Izuku chuckled and shook his head slightly. "Okay, let's go try and find him," Izuku responded. She jumped happily as she waited for you and Izuku to gather all the bags that sat on the floor, completely forgetting about the cotton candy. The three of you walked around for a while until you found a line with some kids and their parents. You tapped Izuku's shoulder and pointed. He smiled as he saw the line. "Come on, we have to wait in this line," Izuku said. Eri happily followed him to the line. You are now at the front of the line, and as the three of you waited, you could feel Aries' energy starting to change. You glanced down at her to see that she was fiddling with her fingers, a scowl placed on her face. You bent down so you could see her better, placing the bags down as well. Aries, are you okay? You asked her. She looked at you and nodded. What's wrong? You asked her quietly. She sighed and looked back at her hands. What if Santa doesn't like me because of my quirk? She whispered. It's bad. It hurts people, she whispered again, tears now in her eyes. You sighed and placed your hands on her arms, turning her to face you better. Santa's going to love you. He already does. Your quirk is not bad. A lot of good people have quirks that can be dangerous, you told her. She looked up at you again. Really? She asked. You nodded your head, but never broke eye contact with her. Yes, my quirk can be dangerous too. So can Izuku's. That's why we train every day to try and get it under control, you responded. She thought for a moment, then nodded her head. Someone dressed as an elf came over to the three of you. You stayed squatted so Aerie would feel more comfortable talking to him. Hi, little girl. I'm Santa's helper. What's your name? He asked her. She turned to face him and listened to his question. You rubbed her back to help her stay calm and confident. Aerie, she responded. The elf smiled. Beautiful name. Are you ready to meet Santa? He asked her. She looked at you. You nodded your head to give her encouragement. She looked at the elf and nodded. He reached down to guide her to meet Santa. You and Izuku stayed put, watching carefully to make sure nothing happened to make her panic. They talked for a minute. He managed to make Aerie smile and laugh a little bit, and then they took a picture of them. Aerie stayed with Santa for a moment longer as the photographer handed her the picture. She hugged Santa before running back to the two of you. Look, I did it, she said. The three of you moved out of the line and walked to a bench. You sat together as she showed you the picture. See, I told you he'd love you, you told her as you handed the picture to Izuku. He looked at it for a moment. I'll be right back. You nodded and continued talking to Aerie for a while. Okay, ready to go? The ride home was quiet. Aerie had fallen asleep in the back seat, so when you got to the campus, you carried her while Izuku carried the bags. The picture was still in her hand. Once you got to Aizawa's room, Izuku knocked. Aizawa opened the door immediately, noticing Aerie in your arms. He pointed over to the couch for you to put her down. Izuku placed all the bags beside the couch as well. You took the photo from Aerie's hands and placed it on the table. Izuku handed Aizawa another picture while you tucked Aerie in with a soft fuzzy blanket after taking her shoes and coat off. You said goodnight to your professor and then met Izuku out in the hallway. After the door closed, you began walking towards your own room. Today was a lot of fun. I'm glad he let us take her, you told him. Me too. It was fun. I'm glad we got to do something for her. It felt quiet. After a moment, you were in front of your door. Here, I have something for you, he told you. You smiled at him as he handed you a box with an envelope. I saw it and thought you'd want it. You looked down at the box and slowly opened it. A necklace with a heart pendant rested gently on the box. The heart was decorated with diamonds and the chain was silver. Izuku, this is beautiful, thank you. You pulled him into a tight hug. He sighed happily, wrapping his arms around you as well. Can we maybe go out again, just the two of us? He asked you. You pulled away from him. Like a date? You asked. He nodded his head, a slight blush on his face. I'd really like that, you responded. He smiled at you. Great, I'll text you about the details. You smiled at him. The two of you said goodnight, and he began walking away. You looked down the envelope and opened it, pulling out a picture of Aerie with Santa. You smiled, then went into your room to get ready for bed, completely satisfied with how the day